Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Demystifying Money. I'm your host, Misty Lynch, and I'm joined today by Randa Hoffman. She is the owner of Radiant Wealth Planning and Radiant Tax Services. She's also out in Palo Alto, California. So welcome so much. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Misty. Really appreciate it.
This episode of Demystifying Money with Misty Lynch is proudly sponsored by Soundview Financial Advisors. Visit www.soundviewfinancialadvisors.com to learn more.
So it's fun to talk with other financial planners. I know it's a space that I love. I think it's important for everybody, whether you are just starting out building wealth, whether you have had a long career, all of these things. I think there's always the ability to plan. There's always, while we're still, here, there's always a possibility to make things a little bit different or better in the future. So I wanted to talk with Randa today, just kind of about planning in general, how she talks about it with her clients, how she helps people on the financial planning and the tax side, and also how she kind of utilizes some of the skills that maybe have been ignored in traditional financial advising and planning, where it's not just about the numbers and the returns and the math. There's a lot. Feelings drive everything we do, every decision we make. And so if you want to talk about like what people care about, usually there's going to be some feelings involved. And then if we look back at the calendar or the checkbook, we could figure out where your priorities actually lie. So I just wanted to talk with you. I know that it's an interesting space. I know there's not a lot of, women are still the minority in the financial planning and advising world, but how did you get your start? And is this something you knew you always wanted to do, or did you take a different path here?
A different path. I have yet to find somebody, and maybe you're the one that took the straight path, but I've yet to find somebody who's like, I knew when I was 17, this is what I wanted to do. No, I actually started in IT, but I've always had an interest in investing. And I always I have financial advisors in the family, and I would reach out to them. What would you do if you had $10,000? And they're like, why do you have it? I'm like, no, just like, what would you do with it? Like, and so, they kibosh that conversation. So I just stayed in IT. I think the path would have shifted if they said, well, let's have a conversation. Why are you asking that? Let's, this is interesting. Let's carry it on. No, but I stayed in IT, and I remember I was reading Forbes because I love Forbes. I was reading Forbes, and I came across an article about venture capital. And I'm like, what is this? It is such a new concept. And that's how I started on this money journey, this finance journey. So I, self-studied venture capital. I didn't become a venture capitalist. I went into personal finance. Because I remember when I was in IT, I was sitting at my desk, I looked at the window, and I was like, if I continue on this path, I will be forgotten. And I don't want to be forgotten. I don't want to be forgotten. So I was like, yeah, I'm ready. And so off I went. I went to personal finance, started my career at Edward Jones. From Edward Jones, you get, which is a really good big firm, you get your schooling, right? And all your knowledge and your understanding of the world of finance. And once I got that, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do it my way, which is a little different, right? My way, and start my legacy. So once I did that, I started Radiant Wealth Planning. 2 years after Radiant Wealth Planning, I started Radiant Tax Services because it's so connected and I love taxes. So why not?
No, I think it's interesting because I have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to the show, and a lot of people, a lot of people who, even if they're in, a W-2 position, taxes is something that I feel like people still, they pay them, they understand them to a point, but it's very, not a lot of people haven't necessarily a tax strategy. They've just decided, okay, I can make money or I'll do this. But I think that that's going to be, for a lot of us, it's going to be the biggest expense that we have. Period. And so what are some of the things that you talk to, your clients about when it comes to actually creating a tax plan instead of just playing catch up and, sending in the check or whatever you owe that year?
Yeah, especially for entrepreneurs, for the business owners, there is so much we could do tax planning. So not only so at the end of the year, you're not like, oh my God, this is how much I owe, but also to be really strategic with your money. This is hard-earned dollars, right? Let's be really strategic. Even, something, I'm going to air quotes, as simple as starting an S Corp. Switching from an LLC to an S corp when it's right can have an enormous impact on your taxes, positively, a positive impact on your taxes. So something like that, just talking to somebody is now a right time to switch to an S corp. Okay, let's do that analysis. Let's look at it. Even that, it's really understanding that there are professionals in their field that know more than you, right? And to tap that resource. That's what smart business owners do. They tap those resources. So
That's
do
so
the same.
true. And I think that tax planning and tax codes are changing constantly. And I think we can
All the
see that
time.
with every time we see a bill that's introduced or something that's going to happen. So I think it's not a lack of understanding if you're like, okay, well, my parents used to do their taxes, or I should be able to understand this. I feel like to understand all of the things that you could potentially take advantage of and have a full-time job or a company is getting to be harder and harder to do. So I love kind of when I work with, closely with CPAs and EAs and kind of talking about like, okay, what can we do for these clients to help them, take advantage of the laws the way they're written. Not
Yeah.
exactly. I'm seeing a lot of, and I don't know if you are as well, seeing a lot of tax advice on social media that might be illegal.
You're like, that's, and even I'll say that I have a financial advisor friend. She said something. I'm like, no, that's not right. No, that's not, so it's that complex. It's really complex. It's not that, people don't understand it. Like you said, it's just so complex. I had a client before he joined Radiant Wealth Planning. So on the financial planning side, he cashed out his Roth IRA. And so, I did also his taxes for him on both. And he came after he cashed out his Roth IRA. I'm like, well, there's a tax on the Roth. He's like, no, it's Roth. I'm like, no, there's a 5-year holding on the Roth IRA. So that's the kind of thing. Taxes is layered. It's not just one level of law. The tax law goes many levels deep. And so if you look at the Roth IRA laws, for example, the rules on it, there's several layers to it. There's more to just it's tax-free money. And so that's why it's so important to talk to somebody, a professional. It's so before you do anything, that's the critical thing before you do anything, because I can't do anything after you make those decisions.
Yeah, and I think that that's where people get in trouble is they're trying to do the right thing or they've heard something. And I think that's the one area where it's very specific. And this is the same with financial planning too. A lot of times what worked for somebody else won't work for you. Or maybe you are not even allowed to do what worked for somebody else just because of the either the amount of money you make or the type of job you have, all of those things. And so I think it is very important where sometimes there is cookie cutter advice that's in general good for most people. And then there's some things that are very specific. So I feel like financial planning and tax planning are definitely ones that should be tailored to you. But I guess we could talk about in general, for some people who are maybe looking at, wanting to get their financial life in order and their planning. And so how do you think for somebody who maybe is just starting to lean into this financial planning, thinking maybe they need a plan, maybe they feel like they either make a lot of money and don't know where it goes, or why do I always feel broke? Why do I always feel this way? How do you suggest that somebody who's really starting to look at their financial life would maybe start to get organized?
So the most important thing is that they're asking that question. If there's an inkling like, what, I'm making money, but I don't know why I'm feeling like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. That question is what should set you on that journey for financial planning, right? And that's really what, Misty, when they come to both of us, it's like, so I know I should talk to you, but I make money, they're kind of hesitant, right? That is so powerful, and take action right away. Use that energy and take action right away. So when somebody comes to me, the first thing we look at is, okay, let's look at the cash flow. So we use an app and we look at the cash flow. Where's your money? Let's just look where it's going, right? Where attention goes, energy flows, right? Or energy, right? There's a saying like that. So wherever you're putting your attention, that's where your energy is going, and that's what you're maximizing.
Yes.
So let's look at where that's going. After that, do we need to create a budget? You know, it's so crazy. When I say a budget, it's not restrictive. I don't mean restrictive. Naturally, people go on a budget on their own when they start seeing their cash flow. So people are like, oh my God, I didn't know I'm spending so much on fill in the blank, and it doesn't even mean anything to them. So naturally, they're creating their own budget just by looking at the cash flow. That's all. No judgment.
Yeah.
That's the most important. No judgment.
And this is something that I think everybody should do, whether it's for you personally, if you're in a business, it's really important to look at where the money is coming in and where it's going, because I do think that it's gotten very easy to part with our money. You have a click or an app, or you double click something and all of a sudden you're signed up for a new subscription. And I think that people maybe have some things that they benefited from a year ago or 2 months ago that they don't even use anymore. So to not look at it because you think it's going to hurt, I feel like paying attention to your money is actually a really great way to get more of it, whether it's stopping
true.
these things or really just having that awareness to say, and I think that's where the judgment comes in, because people think often that we're going to judge them
Oh
for how much they
no.
spend or where they spend their money. And I don't really care, as long as it's like,
Yeah.
you're not going to hurt anybody and it's legal, that's fine. But they might have a feeling like, I don't like that. That's too much over here, or I didn't even remember I did this. And so getting control over that budget, I feel like it is empowering. But you're right, there is such an aversion sometimes to that, where it feels like you're going to take all the fun away, aren't you, Randa? Like, you're going to take all
Yeah.
the fun away.
Yeah, totally. It's so I'll say this to your listeners. Misty and I will never judge you if we look at your budget and you have some sort of, I have a client, they love to do art, but like metal art. So we
Yeah.
put a budget on it. We're like, okay, 5,000 every quarter. You're going to get extra from your investment. This is for your metal art. They're so excited.
Yeah.
So for the quarter, they look around. What do they want to get? And they get their little extra bonus from the retirement. And that's it. So it's fun. We make it fun. And Misty, I think you're like me. We have a no judgment zone.
Yeah.
I always come with a clear slate. And that is the honest truth. I
Mhm.
come in a meeting with a clear slate. Okay, I'm here. I'm here for you. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
And so people might think, well, why do I need to meet with a financial advisor to do this? You can do it on your own, but are you?
Yes.
And do you know what to do after that? And can you be accountable to yourself and to continue doing it? That's
Yes.
really where we come in.
Yeah, I think that it's a good point, because a lot of times there are so many things that you could do on your own. And I think that almost everything I do, my clients could do. It's just a fact of, do you want to? Do you have the time to learn, some of the, maybe some of the planning techniques or the investments? Like, is that something you enjoy or want to do? And some people it is, and some just want a second opinion, and they're good on their own. But I think it's just sometimes it's kind of reading the label from outside the bottle versus inside, where I have a human brain and I know that sometimes I will feel all sorts of flustered or some kind of way about certain things that I'm spending money on, or ways I'm making money, or things like that. And it's easier to kind of sometimes talk to another person outside who really is just asking questions and getting information to see, like, okay, yeah, am I spending money in a way that I want? Do I really care about some of these goals? That kind of leads me to another question about setting goals and thinking about what you want you mentioned your legacy. You didn't want to be forgotten. How do you help people to uncover what they actually want to do? Because I think that for a lot of people, the American dream has changed. It's not exactly what they want. And for some people, it feels just depressing. I should be here. I should have this now. So how do you help people get to that personal answer about what they want to do with their money?
Yeah, we always start backwards.
Mhm.
So and then when I first started my career, I used to do this, when do you want to retire? That would be my question.
Mhm.
That's it. That was, the beginning. And a lot of financial advisors. Okay, so when do you want to retire? And always I always would get the generic answer. Well, I guess at 65. Well,
Mhm.
that's not Like, how thrilling is that answer to you? Not at all. So if that's not a thrilling answer and I say, okay, so we need to save X amount of dollars in your retirement account to get to that goal, you're not going to do it because it's not exciting.
Right.
So let's start creating a plan, goals, a life, a dream that's really exciting to you. What fires you up? That's what I want to know. What fires you up? And some people don't know, and that's okay. I can get you there. I'm really good at that. That's my superpower. I can get you there. And
So how
so
would you say, look, for some people, what are some of the things you do to get there? Because I have talked to people, and when people ask you a question and you don't have a great answer, and then you feel bad about not having a great answer or a perfectly crafted vision for your future, but it's true. A lot of times you might have accomplished a lot, and then you get to a point and you're like, I don't know now. So how do you help people with that?
Yeah. So instead of asking, so let's go back to the retirement question. Instead of asking, when do you want to retire? When do you want to make work optional?
Mm.
And so that's a very different answer. Now I get, maybe I could do it at 55. Huh. If you want to make work optional at 55, what would you want to do after that? Like maybe a part-time job, maybe I would want to start my business. Maybe I would want, and now listen, I don't want a perfect answer. I tell them this is not a perfect, let's just brainstorm. We're brainstorming. We're not creating a plan right now. We're just brainstorming. Another thing I ask them, and this is my therapist and guru, my spiritual guru asked me this. She's like, Randa, how do you want your life to be? When you're on your deathbed, what do you want to look back on your life? What do you want to have accomplished? And how do you want it to look like? And I'm like, oh my God, that's so big. I was like, Loretta, I don't know, but let me think about it. And I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I think I'm here. And, you have to ask your heart, right? Don't make it an ego answer. I told her, I think I'm here to create a financial and economic empire. I don't know what that means yet, but I think that's what keeps coming up. So, and look, two businesses in finance, so there's something to it. If you just have, and I tell people, what's the first thing that comes to mind? That's usually an intuition. And it's something in your heart. It's planted in your heart, not mine. It's your intuition, not mine. This is my journey. What's your journey? That's what I want to find out.
Yeah. No, and I think it's true when you think about those answers, 65, they were set a long time ago in a very this was basically your life expectancy, and that was what Social Security. And so everyone just kind of stuck with it. I don't really know too many people who have successfully just planned retired right at 65. A lot of times there's things that happen in between. And so I love that idea of being work optional, because it's important to think okay, well, even, if you love your job, it might be something that you don't control when you leave, or, you might have a change of heart in 30 years, 20 years. And so I like that work optional question, because then it gets people thinking about well, what would I do if money wasn't the only thing I needed? What would I do if money wasn't an object? And then some people, that's where you can get at what they actually would love to be doing with their time and their energy. And then maybe we could figure out a way to build that into the budget, even if it's not to produce income, but it's to make them happy. And so I've seen some artists, some people who like working with kids or dogs. And so it's hard to kind of pull that out when we're looking at the numbers, but it's so important. It's so important to know it.
I'll tell you two examples. I think examples are good for me. That just makes it real. I have a client in 2 years, so she'll be 62 in 2 years. She'll make work optional. She's like, but I really love where I'm working. I'm like, you know what? That's the beautiful thing. In 2 years, you're going to work the same job because it's optional, because you want to go, not because you have to go. Oh my God, she just loved her job even more.
Yeah.
It is. So for the other example, for people who love to work with kids or animals, let's do it now. I don't want you to wait till you're 55 or 65 to start living your life. How can we pull it in now? How can we really tighten your money so maybe you do get a different job that you love and work with the animals or the kids that you love? So I think that's where we come in is we expand your world to all options and opportunities. you couldn't even imagine. And then we do the technical stuff like the investments, just because we do that, we're also geeking in other ways, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Point.
yeah.
It's a great point because a lot of people think, well, I can't change careers or I can't do that. Or some younger people who have a very expensive education to pay off and they don't want to do, so I think a lot of times it's okay, well, you can, but we might have to figure out how to realign your spending, your living, your expenses so you can do that. And that's where the math comes in. That's where the planning. That's all. It's just math. But some people feel very opposed to ever taking a pay cut because they feel like, but that's what I'm worth now. And that is something that I feel like a lot of times people get tripped up on, is feeling that whatever that salary, that highest point, was their actual value. Where trying to convince people that they are inherently worth it and more valuable than it is very tough. So what do you say when you do talk to people who maybe aren't happy with what they're doing, but they make good money and they're confused whether they should make any changes or just, why can't you just be happy?
Yeah, no, we can't just say just why you, right? You will never hear Misty and I say, why can't you just be happy?
But they might hear that from their spouse. They might hear
Oh,
that from their parent.
oh,
And
totally.
it's a
Yeah,
tough one.
totally.
It's a tough
It
one.
is a tough one. Well, they're not happy because that's not their calling, unless, and there might be something else in the organization that they might be happy. There's several reasons. You might find something else that you could do, a lateral move. So what I really want to get is, I mean, once we understand the cash flow and the budget, the biggest part is reducing debt. I think debt, and I see it over and over and over. So please hear me and know this to be true. Debt is a dream killer. Credit card debt, let's eliminate that. The only debt I try to get clients to is a mortgage debt. After that, we'll pay it off. Let's work on other things. We pay off the credit cards, we pay off the car. So now we understand your cash flow. We got on a budget. Now we're tackling debt. And so a lot of people, they're just, even with high income earners, they're just overspending. So let's knock that down. Let's look at different jobs. Let's just explore. Let's just see. Let's listen to something about me. I'm an Aries. I'm always curious. Let me just see. And that always leads to a whole different journey path. So let's just see.
Yeah.
Let's just see what's out there. Something might really, spark that interest in, oh my God, what is this job? I just love it. And guess what? It's been waiting for you all along.
Yeah, no, and I think that's why even when I started this podcast and I talked to different people in different lines of work, it was just, part of me wanted to just show people how other people make money. Because a lot of times, even when I was in corporate for 15 years, I would think like, I'd love to do, how do people do that? How do people make a living doing that? How could you even oh, everybody must just be wealthy and I don't have that. And so it's interesting to talk to people about how they kind of followed what was in their heart or what they really felt compelled to do, and to tie in that financial end of it. We all, you need to, we're not all running non-charities and things like that, but how can you actually try to tie that in, whether it is from paid work, whether it is from something you do that makes your job better, or you're, like you said, shifting around your curiosity about what's available in this organization. Maybe I don't have to burn everything to the ground, but maybe there could be something that feels more aligned with what I want to do. And so I think getting curious is something that, is kind of beaten out of us at a very young age in school, like this is what you're supposed to do. And then you get to a point where you're like, I don't really know what I want. And that can be tough. So I love that you kind of will help people get curious or ask themselves questions. And I think that's where some of that mindset work in the coaching kind of can come in, because if as advisors or planners, we just took the facts and we don't ask, do you like your job? And you said, yeah, I'll work till 65. Okay, great. That makes the math a lot easier. But I do think it's more complicated than that. Yeah,
it is. That's lazy financial planning. That's somebody just wants to, just click, click, click. Here you go. Here's your numbers. Yeah. You really don't want it. You want somebody who's really invested in your life. Really. Yeah. I really want you to succeed. Truly. Above and beyond your wildest dreams. That is what we are here for,
I
And
agree.
so, right? Yeah, yeah. And so even if I go on the investing part, even
Mhm.
when I talk about the taxes part, it's always how can I up level you?
Mhm.
How can I up level you in, keeping more money in your pocket as opposed to the IRS? How can I up level your investing? Your investment so you can get a higher return. How can I, or not so low when it's a low year, right? How can I up level the financial planning so that, we're really, really planning your wealth and creating wealth? How can we do that all your entire life?
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. I mean, to have a partner like that by your side, yeah, sign me up.
Right. I think it can be helpful too. And a lot of times that might not be, it might not be your friends or the people you're closest to where you can actually explore those things because I do think there's a lot of shame, there's a lot of secrecy, and there's still a lot of taboo around like talking about money with people and talking about wanting to make more of it, have more of it, spend more, all of those things. It feels a little bit strange. And so I've seen people who've become successful really feel like they don't really feel alone and like
Hmm.
they're not sure who to talk to about that stuff. So I think that can be an area too, where financial planners can step in and help if, for some people who maybe have gone into a new tax bracket and they feel a little bit, and you're working in, you're in Palo Alto, California, there's probably a lot of people who maybe were not wealthy when they moved out there or took that first job. So how do you help people with that aspect of really their financial situation changing and maybe
Oh,
not their
I
brain
love it.
catching up?
I love it. The more complex a tax return is, the more exciting I get. It's like, I don't know what it is because taxes is infinite. Even
Yes.
for tax professionals, we are always learning. So if there's something I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. What is that? Let me see. Oh, what is, I
Mhm.
just love it. And so if somebody, starts at, one of the big tech companies and they get, RSUs and then, they get stock options and stock compensation, stuff like that. A lot of times that is taxed in a way it shocks new people in the industry.
Mhm.
So let's talk about it. Let's plan it. Let's do financial planning and also tax planning
Mhm.
because they're related. So it's so important.
Yeah.
I really can't stress enough. If you're going into a new financial situation, talk to somebody.
Mhm.
Let's plan it ahead of time. We can do future planning. I can do a future projection. This is how much I'm going to estimate your tax return is going to be if you don't do anything. This is how much I can project your tax return to be if we do these changes. Let's do that before.
Yeah.
And and I can't really stress enough of the importance of talking to the professional, right? And think about really, really wealthy people. Let's think about really wealthy people. They have their advisors. They have their team of advisors. They don't go and think, oh, I know how to do it all. They don't. So
Right.
take that mindset. Like, if you really want to step up your game, take that mindset.
I think that's an important point because a lot of times you think about, okay, well, what would somebody who has, a thriving business, what would they do? Would they spend time to learn this or would they outsource this? Or would they talk to somebody about this or would they try to wing it? And of course your brain immediately is like, oh no, they wouldn't do that. And so trying to
No.
put yourself into that mindset, okay, maybe if you were a 6-figure, 7-figure business owner, what would you do at that point? And try to make decisions from that place instead of just where you've always been. Because like you said, the stock options, RSUs, sometimes people are now like, whoa, I don't even understand what I signed up. I was just good at this and got promoted. And so I think it's so important to kind of understand all of your compensation, the tax consequences of it, because some people, it is very surprising, or they might get that big tax bill and be like, oh, this was a mistake when it's not. Being where it's,
That's what
but it can
happens.
feel that
Yeah.
way. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious with the tax industry, is this an area where you've seen, I don't know in your location, but I've seen a lot of people having trouble finding tax consultant who really want to talk strategy. And it's become a lot more of a, upload your stuff and we'll file your return and we'll put you on extension. What's going on in the tax space as far as you know? And,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts for people who maybe would be interested in that kind of work?
I know what you mean because this is why I started Radiant Tax Services. And this is how this whole thing started. Besides that, I love taxes. because as a financial advisor, I would reach out to a tax professional, right? And I'm like, let's do some tax planning for this client. And they're like, no, we're transactional.
Mm-hmm.
We do a return and I'll see you next year. I'm like, well, I kind of don't want that.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of financial advisor friends. They didn't want that either for their clients. So I was like, well, I'll just start this firm. I love it anyway. It'll help my clients. And I work with other financial advisors for their clients.
Yeah.
So I don't, and maybe it's because of, you know, employees and I'm just making this up, right? Maybe it's because employees in a tax firm need to generate X amount of revenues, have to, complete X amount of return every year. And so they don't have time. They don't have time for it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, maybe we have a shortage of tax professionals too.
I have heard that there's less people going into the industry and that the average age is getting higher, like around 60, because I was just, when I graduated college in like 2002, like accounting was a pretty good major, but maybe they're all going to robotics and computer science. I don't know, but it seems like there's such a shortage. But I do love tax planning, and I think it's super important. I think it's great that you kind of found that way to combine the strategy part of it, because you're right, as you do the return, it's almost too late to get ahead of it. So I kind of love, if you're somebody who has a business and you're thinking about that, to kind of think about it, when maybe, summertime or other times can be a good time to kind of consider your tax situation and see if your planner or even if your accountant has a minute to talk about these things with you. So important, such a huge piece of your financial picture. So I guess finally, I think that one of the things that is refreshing to see is how you've kind of combined the spiritual side and all of that, that energy with your financial planning and tax practice, which could use an infusion of like a little bit. I think it should get a little bit more, maybe tie into the emotions a little bit more than it has in the past. So how do you feel like the future for our financial planning is going to look for people, or for people like us who maybe feel like we're kind of a little different than what we've seen as far as financial planners are concerned? And how can we kind of learn how to embrace that, the thoughts, the feelings, and, a positive, or changing some of the mindset, some of the blocks that we might have to, improve our financial future, and that for our clients?
So I think, so for us, listen, Misty, you and I know just a handful of other advisors that are like us. We're what people call soft, and I had an interview with Vogue Orange County. So just for Vogue, just specifically for Orange County. And I told her, you're like, you know what? Just because I'm quote unquote soft, like, how do you feel, right? I'm still hella smart, And so I think we need to decouple this, that, oh, if you're smart, that means you got to talk about the numbers and the return and the expense ratio and this and that. It's like, no, I don't need to do that. I know that, so when I do my work, I know how to do it. But no, with clients, I tell them before we move in, I'm like, how do you feel? How does this feel? At the end of the meeting, how does this feel? I'm like, yeah, okay. Or, I feel much better every time. I always get, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. So now we have a path and we meet every quarter. So now we have like that's all I want you to do is just focus on the quarter. Okay. That's all we're doing. And so it's gentler. It's more humane. It's less robotic. It's less advisors putting ourselves on a pedestal. We're just normal people.
Yeah.
This is our profession. That's all that is.
That it's great to see other people out there, because I think the only emotion that I was trained to focus on was fear.
Oh my God.
What keeps you up at night? What's your biggest fear? And like kind of then to pressure people into either buying more insurance or something. And I was like, this is awful. Like, why can't we talk about like what gets people excited and what gets people like fired up? And that doesn't sell the same way. But I do think it does have the same sort of impact on how we act and what we do with our money, just maybe more from a place of excitement and like positive like outcomes than avoiding bad.
Yeah.
So
Why do you want to work with a financial advisor that you meet with them and they scare you? There was a study that says uh, people are more scared to talk to their financial advisors than to go to the dentist.
yeah,
We're worse than the dentist because
yeah,
advisors are building that fear. Well, let
right.
me tell you, if you don't work with me and the market drops 50%, you're screwed. Well, no, no, to walk away from those kind of advisors. There's
Yeah,
plenty of awesome people that are not like that. There
yeah.
really are. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think there is a lot of, and there's going to be a lot of anxiety when it comes to money. I've talked to people that seen the market go up and down and they feel stressed, they feel nervous. And then there's people who see, the election coming up, all these things that are kind of thinking about, oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me? And then I think when you make decisions from that place, usually they're going to be impulsive. They might be a bad decision, based on fear. So I think it's so important to kind of create a plan where, last week I didn't get one phone call and the market dropped. I actually got one and it was, should I buy more of X? So like kind of understanding, no, this is how it works. It's like energy. These businesses, this is, news comes in, things go up,
Mhm.
things go down, and kind of feeling like, okay, I can stomach this and I can maybe take advantage of it when I really start to get it. I think that kind of puts people in a place different from being like, well, give it to me and don't worry about it because it's too hard for you to like,
No,
this is kind
yeah.
of fun. Let's,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I tell clients when it comes to investing, I don't have any emotion tied to it. It's not emotional.
right.
And so you really want an advisor that is really secure and confident
Mhm.
in that part because you don't want, I had an advisor, oh my God, the market dropped. I called all my clients and I let them know. I'm like, why are you adding more fear?
Yeah.
No, just calm down. I told the advisor, just calm down.
Hmm.
Just calm down. That's what your
Yeah.
clients want you to. They want you to be calm and
Hmm.
secure and confident in your strategy that you created for them when they joined. So yeah.
Yeah. No. So calling people and people that might be like going about their business and then
Yeah, they didn't even know.
it's kind of scary, or it's like go touch some grass, go, you're good, you're gonna be
We're
fine. But
good.
man,
It's
it's
good.
it
Yeah.
is it is an interesting space, but I love it. And I'm so glad that we've met and that I found another person, like-minded person who enjoys the
Oh, of
taxes and the numbers,
course.
but also like helping people and making them feel
Yeah.
good. Tell people how can they reach out to you or follow you if they want to either work with you or learn more about what you do or just follow your content.
Yeah. I'm super easy to find. And the easiest place to go to the website, either radiantwealthplanning.com or radianttaxservices.com. And social media and everything links out from there and newsletters and all the goodness.
Well, thank you so much for joining and thank you everybody for
Thanks.
listening. If you're trying to think about your money mindset and get your thoughts together, please head over to my website, mistylynch.com. You can grab a copy of my book, Demystifying Money, catch up with other episodes of the podcast, or learn more about the firm if you're looking to have somebody help you with this personally. Thanks so much for joining, and we'll talk again next week. Don't forget to share with friends and family, and together let's demystify the world of money. Knowledge is the key to financial empowerment.